Good evening, everyone. Anas, Tinku, is my voice audible?
Yes, you are very much.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the participants for joining in today's session, and a very, very warm and a happy new year to everybody. We have a great session which is lined up today, which will be taken by Abhishek. And I won't spend too much time, and we will let Abhishek and Mamta both do a lot of insightful talking and share their knowledge with us. But it's my privilege to introduce Abhishek. And Abhishek, a warm welcome to you and Mamta on behalf of IIA Hyderabad and our team of Board of Governors and to all the participants. Abhishek is an associate partner with Grant Thornton, who heads the sustainability and ESG practice. Abhishek has got nearing 20 years of experience, nearing 2 decades of experience in the sustainability reporting, assurance engagements, CSR strategies, reporting, and also across various organizations, across various sectors as well. Abhishek will be handling some of the very, very important aspects of ESG, which is the go-to and the buzzword today we hear in every organization. And then please reserve your questions for end of the session, where you'll have a question and answer session. Alternatively, you can start putting it up in the chat box. With that said, let me hand it over to Abhishek. And Abhishek, thank you again to you and your team for joining in, and over to you, please.
Thank you, Sunil, and welcome everyone. So, hi, as Sunil mentioned, I'm associated with GT Bharat as an associate partner. Today, I would be briefly touching upon the buzzword, the ESG, trying to explain you what does it mean, what does it imply, how important it is, and what is the significance of getting ESG integrated with the business, right? And I would be supported by my colleague Mamta. Mamta and I work closely at GT India. A brief about me. So I am a CA by qualification, and the work which I do, so I do not have any qualification on this work. It's all by practice over last 15, 16 years. It's all by interest. It's all by choice. Maybe my colleague Mamta is more qualified on ESG as compared to me. So let's quickly start. Mamta, if you could.
Yeah, thank you, Abhishek, and thank you for being so humble. But no, I've learned a lot while working with Abhishek, and right now I'm working in the capacity of manager in GT Bharat CSG practice. And yes, whatever little experience I have, it's in this field only. So I have been, from start of my career, I have been into sustainability and ESG advisory completely. So yeah, just excited to share my views on ESG today with you all, and would look forward to receiving questions and queries from you, which we could answer. Right.
So ESG, an overview. What does ESG mean? Now ESG is not ESG. ESG was not ESG some years back. So say 7, 8, 10 years back, it was OHS, Occupational Health and Safety. Then some years later, OHS changed to EHS, which became Environment, Health and Safety. Some years later, another S was added to it, so it became Environment, Health, Safety and Social, or Social and Safety. And then now it's being called as ESG in its current form, current state. What does ESG mean? So E, S, and G are the three central factors in measuring sustainability of a business. They have been derived from the triple bottom line approach of people, planet, and profit. The idea is to focus on all the P's and not just profit. Now, what does E mean? Impact of companies' operations on the environment and the consequences or results of the same on all living beings, us. What does S mean? Companies' interaction with social stakeholders on the social front, which is, there's an overlap with CSR here, and I'll explain how that is. What does G mean? Basically, how is the company being governed? What is the focus on internal controls, compliance, and disclosures? Have the risks been identified, and have adequate mitigation procedures been taken up? And then there's a journey of ESG. So how it all started in 1980s, Nestle came up with this milk powder, the formula, and their punchline, the advertisement with that milk powder was, it is this Nestle product was better than mother's milk. Now, this created a lot of hue and cry among the stakeholders, and people protested. This was something wrong, and Nestle had to take back this advertisement or take back this punchline, advertising punchline. So it's always somewhere. It's always the stakeholders who have an influence on the ESG concerns, ESG factors of the company. Couple of more examples. Some 6-7 years back, there was this book published in the Harvard University, again published by an Indian. And the title of the book was Tainted Indian Carpets. Now we all know that Indian carpets are exported globally across all the countries, all the big countries buy Indian carpets. Now, when this book came out, the Department of Labor, Government of the United States, passed on an executive order which banned imports of all Indian-made carpets to the US. The government of India quickly got into action, and this book mentioned that there was predominant child labor in India, to a large extent, forced labor, bonded labor in India. The working conditions of the weavers, the carpet weavers, was not good, very unhygienic. The living conditions were also unhygienic. They were not getting paid well. The compensation was not adequate as per their work. So all that was happening. And the Indian government quickly got into action. So they formed a committee, and the committee got engaged with the consulting organization to do an independent review of the living and earning conditions of the carpet weavers in India. So we did close to 30,000 weavers. And then while the child labor was there, but the working conditions was not all that bad as was mentioned in that book, in that report. So then the Indian government formed a delegation which went to the US government. Unfortunately, I was not a part of the delegation, but yes, my report was of course there. Another big fiasco, big disaster which everyone would have heard about was the Rana Plaza building collapse in Bangladesh, where close to 3,000 workers died one single day. Now, what had happened was there was this big, huge building in Bangladesh, Rana Plaza. It was a garment manufacturing hub. So almost all the big brands of the world, think about any brand, and that brand was getting its manufacturing done in this building. One day, and somewhere the conditions, the security concerns, the safety concerns were overlooked, and one day this building collapsed, 3,000 people died. And then there was a lot of hue and cry. There were protests, and every big brand was targeted. And the International Labour Organization then set up a fund and then asked all the big brands to contribute to their share for the victims. So my previous client, in my previous organization, also had to make a contribution and did a quantification of how much should be their contribution in the ILO declared fund. So these are some examples why ESG is important, and if ESG concerns are not taken seriously, they would lead to outcomes which would not be good for the company, which would not be good for the brand, which would not be good for the reputation. So yeah, next slide, please.
Sure.
Key drivers for ESG. So there are 4 key drivers for ESG. Most important, regulators. Second is the pandemic, COVID-19, climate change, and the investors. So of late, we have been seeing increasing pressures by regulators to disclose on the ESG parameters. Recent initiatives of financial regulatory bodies in the US, in the UK, in the EU, also in India, they are generating regulatory momentum focused on ESG concerns. So as a result, what is happening? Financial institutions and intermediaries are becoming more interested in obtaining and analyzing the ESG-related data and information from companies. Especially the listed companies, they are expected to give further ESG-related detailed disclosures. So as a result, what's happening? ESG data is in high demand from the stakeholder group throughout the entire value chain. COVID-19 pandemic has also exposed the ESG vulnerabilities. Now we are sure that the business as usual thing does not hold good now. We can no longer rely on business practices that are solely focused on maintaining the status quo. So we need to adapt to new realities such as environmental and social factors. ESG is not a passing trend, but it's going to be here for good, and it's a question of survival now. Climate change. So climate change is again creating a wide range of risks for the business. Climate change is not a CSR issue now. it's a business problem. And companies who still feel that the climate change issues are CSR issues and they can take care of it will face the greatest ramifications. Again, coming on to the investors, so the investors are again increasingly considering ESG performance of the target companies to better manage the investment risk. So they are also focusing on the ESG risks and concerns, opportunities. And the investors also know that the ESG can affect long-term performance sustainability of a business. So again, investors are again a driving factor towards ESG. Next slide, please. Integrating ESG with the business into the business. What does that mean? That essentially means identifying the ESG risks, mitigation procedures, and then making a whole lot of disclosures or communications to the stakeholder group on how these ESG risks are being identified and being managed. This includes, as I mentioned, risk assessment, mitigation, and adequate disclosures around the same. The ultimate goal is sustainability of the business. What is going to be the result? The result is the access to new markets, access to new customers, better financial performance, attracting investors, employee retention, employees association with the organization, and end of the day, a better brand value and recognition of that brand value. How do you go about doing it? Identifying and addressing the key ESG risks which could impact the business, defining the vision, direction, and goals on how to tackle with these risks, which would essentially be the ESG strategy, and then setting up the roadmap with the targets, with the milestones, the KPIs. The next step is revamping the operating model to implement the ESG initiatives and redefining the business processes. Once this is all done, then measuring the outcomes with the milestones and the KPIs identified earlier, and then making adequate communications disclosures to the stakeholder group. And this stakeholder group could be your supply chain, your customers, your employees, etc., etc. So whoever is associated with the company becomes a stakeholder. Next slide, please. Why should one integrate ESG with the business? Multiple reasons. As I mentioned earlier, investors seek for investing in more sustainable businesses. Better ESG risk identification and mitigation would also help controlling the operating expenses. It would also lead to a whole lot of better and compliance-driven regulatory and legal disclosures and regulatory and legal compliances. And ESG is not for the business only, but also for the supply chain. So it's not just that the business becomes sustainable, but the supply chain also becomes sustainable. And as I mentioned earlier, improved employee productivity, expansion of business, top line growth, enhanced brand value, recognition, etc., etc. So that's the benefit of integrating ESG with the business.
Right. So I would take up the next slide, but before we move on to the next slide, I would like to discuss one case study with you all to further emphasize on why integrating ESG concerns in business strategy is important. So this case study is of a multinational beverage company, and I would not be taking the name, but let's call it ABC, for ease of discussion. So this company, ABC, had to close down one of its factories because there was a lot of hue and cry and protest from the local community, claiming that they are withdrawing so much of groundwater that they don't have water for irrigating their farmlands. So basically, they were claiming that their fertile lands are now getting converted into desert. And because of this protest, the High Court of that particular or of that respective state had to give orders to ABC that they need to stop withdrawing the groundwater. And as a result of that, they had to shut down that particular factory permanently. Now, what did ABC do post this event? So what ABC did was that they went into, they started an initiative to do a risk assessment study. and they included all kind of key stakeholders who were important for their business. So they communicated or they interacted with their customers. They were talking with the NGOs. They were talking with their supply chain partners. So they included all kind of key stakeholders in this study to be able to understand what kind of impact their operation has on them and what kind of risk it poses to their business. And post this study, what they did is that they publicly took a commitment that they will be replenishing all the water which they are consuming in their business process. Now they took various water efficiency measures across their operations, but beyond it also they were investing in a lot of water replenishment projects. They were helping in building community water infrastructures like small check dams, etc. And because of that, their current status is that they are able to replenish more water than they are actually consuming in their operations, which is quite an achievement. And what we understand from this case study is basically the takeaway is that ABC was able to realize that they need to take care of the ESG concerns. They just can't focus on the financial metrics that won't help them sustain their business in long run. And they focused on the ESG aspect or ESG concerns for their business, worked on it, included it in their business strategy, and that has helped them build their reputation back. So if there are any questions on this, we would take it at the end of it. You can keep typing your questions. And now moving on to the next slide, Abhishek has given a very good idea on how to go about integrating ESG into your business. But I would say it's equally important that you are also communicating to your stakeholders what you're doing across these ESG concerns. So you've integrated, you're implementing, you're doing all the good work, but if it's not being communicated to your stakeholders, they would never know what good work you are doing, and you won't be able to build on your reputation and enhance the reputation of the company. So how you can go about it is one of the ways is ESG reporting. We also call it sustainability reporting. So this reporting is basically a communication tool which provides information on the ESG impacts of the organization and the impacts these ESG concerns can have on the organization's business. As we all know that in last 1 decade, whether it's the investor or other key stakeholders, they all have been demanding companies to disclose on their ESG strategies, the kind of goals and targets they have set, and what have they been able to achieve on that. So ideally, your ESG report should be covering both qualitative disclosure and the quantitative metrics, which is able to give an idea on the company's performance across the material ESG concerns and the related strategies which you have set up. So as you're able to see on your screen, there are 3 boxes. So one is the environmental, one box focuses on the environmental aspects. So as it's clear, ESG reporting would have 3 pillars: environmental, social, and governance pillars. So in environmental pillar, companies can report on various aspects like climate change or greenhouse gas emission, water management, biodiversity and land use, etc., etc. Now, it's not necessary that you would be reporting across all these aspects. So as we earlier mentioned, you need to focus on your material ESG concern. So that is what you need to understand, what's material for your company, among these aspects into the in the environmental pillar, in the social pillar, and the governance pillar. And then at least you have to report on these. You can additionally report on other aspects, but those should definitely be covered in your ESG report. So let's just take an example, like we discussed regarding the beverage company. So for a beverage company, how they are managing the water resource, it's very important. So they need to report on that. Their ESG report should definitely cover that aspect. Let's take one more example, like an oil and gas company. So for oil and gas company, greenhouse gas emissions, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, all of it would be very important. So they should be reporting on at least that aspect under environmental pillar. Now, similarly for social pillar, there are various aspects like health and safety, the labor standards, talent development, how you're managing your supply chain, how you're ensuring product safety and quality, data privacy and security, customer relationship, etc., etc. And again, you have to look at the material aspects among these to report under the social pillar. In governance, there are various aspects like corporate governance, executive remuneration incentives, tax transparency, anti-corruption measures, ethics and integrity, the financial health of the company, and what is your business continuity plan. So these are some of the examples, and there are other aspects also which can be covered under these three pillars depending on what's important for your industry. So moving on to the next slide. Sorry. So yeah, as you can see, there are few global ESG frameworks which we have mentioned here. So, we spoke about ESG reporting and the basics of it, but how do you go about, reporting? So what kind of structure you need to follow? So all those could be, answered, or the guidance can be, obtained from these global frameworks which are already available. So the most used framework would be GRI standard. So it is used across the globe. And what GRI standards provide is a set of sub-standards which has universal standards, including the general disclosures about the company and the management, how your management is approaching the material topics for your company, and then certain topic specific standards, which also gives a lot of KPIs you can report into. It can also help set KPIs, for your own purpose or monitoring of your performance against the critical ESG concerns for you. So these, this can help an organization prepare and report information that will focus on its material topic and reflect the most significant sustainability impacts it is creating. Now, there is one more framework which is followed worldwide, and it is the Integrated Reporting Framework by Value Reporting Foundation. So what an integrated report does is basically it explains to the providers of the financial capital that how the organization is creating, preserving, or eroding its value over the time. So an integrated report is, is very much relevant to all your stakeholders, including, your investors or customers or business partners or the society at large. There's another, framework which is obviously, very popular, which is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We all are aware about it. So these are the goals which were adopted by all the United Nations member states in 2015, and the goals have been set for 2030. It's basically the goals are providing a blueprint for peace and prosperity for the people and the planet in the current scenario and in future. And these goals have certain KPIs and targets within them, which the company can take direction from and demonstrate how they are contributing towards it. And all of these aspects covers the comes under the pillars of environmental, social, and governance. So moving on to the next slide. We spoke about the global frameworks, right? Now there is a regulatory framework also in India, and most of you would be aware about it. So, SEBI has come up with this circular which has introduced the business responsibility and sustainability report. And it is something which will be replacing the current existing BRR for the top 1,000 listed companies by the market capitalization. Now, BRSR includes, a lot of non-financial disclosures, and it has a lot of focus on the quantifiable metrics. And all these disclosures are from the E, S, and G perspective, and they have been categorized under the 9 principles of the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, which is NGRBC. And these measures the performance of the businesses in the area of, business responsibility and the sustainability. Now, this reporting can be done on voluntary basis for FY 21-22, but has to be done on mandatory basis from FY 22-23 for the top 1,000 listed companies. not just in India, globally there are a lot of regulatory framework coming up. UK recently, announced that the companies have to report according to the, IR requirements. So there are other requirements, or other regulatory requirements also coming up in various territories. There is also a global development. I think most of you would be aware about, IFRS, ISB standard. So now they are coming up with the ISSB, which is the International Sustainability Standards Board. And this board would aim to create a standard, and it is going to, merge all the globally available standards right now, like the ones we discussed, GRI, the IR framework, there's CDP framework, SASB standard. So all of these, would be merged together, and a global standard would be formed, so that, there is a comparability across the ESG reports which are, being published by the companies worldwide. So yeah, so moving on to the next slide.
Before this, previous slide, please. So what has changed from the erstwhile BRR to the new BRSR? One thing is for sure, the erstwhile BRR, business responsibility reporting, was an 8-page document. Now the current BRSR is a 35-page document. So in terms of the extent of reporting, the length and coverage of reporting, it has increased. There were 9 principles on which reporting was being done earlier. Those 9 principles remain the same. But what SEBI has done is that they have rejigged the parameters, the disclosures amongst the 9 principles. So something which was in principle 8 is now in principle 2, something which was in 3 is in 4, so likewise. The other change which has been brought about is that the entire framework, the BRSR framework, is divided in 2 components for each of the principles. So there's a voluntary disclosure, and then there's a leadership disclosure. What does that mean? Voluntary, if what you are required to disclose, and leadership is if you are doing something over and above then what is required as per your business, then you disclose that as a leadership disclosure. So these are the basic changes between the erstwhile BRR and the current BRSR. Yeah, please, next slide, please.
Sure.
Role of corporate governance in ESG. So of course, everyone knows that ESG integration into business will happen effectively if it's being driven to the top. And I'll give an example. So when the CSR rules were announced in India in 2014, what did the CSR rules do? They brought about a 3-dimensional change in how CSR was being thought and being executed in India. So before the CSR rules had come in, the location of these CSR discussions used to be a remote location of a plant, and now it has shifted to the boardroom. People who were discussing CSR were either the admin or the HR people in this remote location at the plant. Now the people who are discussing CSR is the board, the CXO level in every company. Theme of CSR discussions before the CSR rules was more on a social license to operate, what could be done for the community which is around the plant location, manufacturing location. Now this theme is how CSR could be integrated with the business. So there's a 3-dimensional change being brought about, and we see that happening again with ESG coming in businesses now. Sound ESG governance also creates a strong basis for board oversight. Reporting requirements are seeking more disclosures and board's involvement in ESG agenda of the company. So this is the basic role corporate governance has in ESG integration. Mamta, could move to the next slide.
Yeah.
Board oversight. So there's no universal approach to how a board could have an oversight on the ESG functions of the organization. It is company specific, and then considerations could include board composition, culture, the committee structure, composition of the board, and the workloads. Next slide. How this all could be done? So there are various ways in how a board could have an oversight on the ESG concerns, ESG operations, ESG issues of the company. First approach could be the board directly. This approach is better suited for companies, small companies where there's limited number of independent directors who can serve on all the board committees. So if this approach is selected, the aim should be to ensure that the entire board, full board, is focusing on most significant ESG matters, with board committees undertaking oversight ESG issues relevant to their responsibilities, and then integrating committee work on these issues when they report to the board. The second approach could be existing board committee. So what does this mean? If ESG is a new focus area for the company and expertise resides at all the subcommittee level, then the ESG oversight should be delegated to existing board members based on their experience, based on their knowledge. They could take up and invest their time on the major ESG issues of the company. Third approach could be a new board committee for an in-depth discussion and focus on ESG issues. A new board committee could be formed which would take care of these issues. However, here the risk of separating the ESG discussions from the broader board discussions, which is the business, finance, strategy, etc. The ESG discussions get separated. So to address this, the committee can have a representation from various groups, which is the finance group, the strategy group, or the regulatory group of the organization. The next one could be having multiple existing board committees. So allocating responsibilities to a committee with relevant knowledge and experience may improve the effectiveness of the board's oversight. Also, since ESG matters often already fall within existing committees, so the areas of responsibilities, it is common to formally delegate those specific ESG issues to multiple existing committees, and they could report back to the board. What is the role of the audit committee? Quickly on that, so the audit committee's expertise in financial reporting enables us to understand and assess the soundness and methodologies and policies which the management is using to develop its matrices and the reporting formats and other ESG disclosures. So they can also help determine whether a company's internal controls are sufficient for ensuring accuracy, reliability, and consistency of the data and information being reported over time, over the years. Role of the audit committee. So the audit committee's expertise in financial reporting enables us to understand and assess the soundness of the methodologies and policies on which the management is using to develop its matrices and other ESG disclosures. This can also help determine whether a company's internal controls are sufficient to ensure the accuracy, reliability, and consistency of the data being reported over time. Some key questions which could be floating in everyone's mind, and I leave this open for everyone to read. I'm sure these questions would be there, and we are happy to address these questions. What has the management identified as the company's material ESG risks and opportunities? How to do a materiality assessment? And if there's a question, we'll of course address this question. Which ESG framework or standard could be used, and why? Why does an organization need to choose a particular framework or a reporting standard? What types of ESG information investors are asking for, or the stakeholders are asking for? How is management preparing for increased regulatory disclosures on the requirements? What is the ESG data collection policy? Yeah, likewise, the other questions. So that's a quick ESG awareness session from our side, and we thought we will devote more time to addressing your queries and concerns, and we are happy to take those questions. So over to you, Tinku.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Abhishek and Mamta. Thank you very much. And as we have any questions, we have.
Yes, sir. We have a question from Ruchik Dave. So it's a long question. I'll read in parts, which is how ESG has impact on cigarette manufacturers since the smoker will keep on buying the product and companies are merely meeting the demand, how government ensures that due to ESG domestic industry is not impacted and foreign company take the advantage thereof?
See the Advanta, please add if you feel like adding. So smoking, those restrictions on advertisement and banning of surrogate advertisements is already in place, whether it be a domestic company or an international company operating in India. So to that extent, government is taking care of that. Government is also encouraging a lot of promotional activities to help people reduce smoking, to help people come out of that habit of smoking. So that's also happening. From a ESG concern side, so the stakeholder government is taking initiative. There are various stakeholders like the NGOs again who have taken a lot of initiatives to help people cut down smoking. You see a lot of advertisements when you go to a cinema hall. You'll see advertisements on why is smoking bad and why one should not be getting into the tobacco or the smoking habits, etc., etc. So this from the stakeholder side, there's a lot of action happening. From the company side, yes, they have to survive and they have to meet their top line, bottom line requirements. But having doing so, they also these. If you see ITC does a lot of work from a social side, from a CSR side, from a corporate responsibility side. So while one cannot get away from what they are doing, but and I would not say that their social initiatives or social activities are compensating what they're doing. But ITC on a whole does a lot of work. They do a lot of work with farmers. They do a lot of work on water initiatives. They do a lot of work on environment initiatives. So all that is happening. Mamta, if you want to add, you can add on this.
Yes, Abhishek, I would just like to add that, in fact, you kind of picked up the right example. So for ITC only, if you see, they are diversifying their portfolio a lot. Like they are getting into everything now, and they are focusing on those areas of operations. So, that is how they are trying to mitigate their ESG risk, because they will obviously, cigarette operation, like cigarette manufacturing is, the area from where they're making the major profits. So they can't really shut down that part of their business, but they're making sure that the focus is on, the other areas of their business instead of the, cigarette. So, yeah.
And the government's regulations are same, whether it be ITC or whether it be a Philip Morris. So.
Right.
Right. And as we have further questions as well, go ahead.
Yes, sir. We have a question from Lakshmikant Gupta. He says there is a cost involved in cleaning the water pollution. So, untimely whether ESG gets passed on to the consumers.
Sorry, Manas, can you please repeat the question once more?
Sure. So he means to say cleaning the water pollution a factory has done incurs cost. So untimely whether ESG costs are passed on to the consumers.
Okay.
See, cleaning this water. So this. Sorry, Amta, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Abhishek, you please go ahead. I'll add on to it.
So cleaning this water is not that the cost is being incurred to clean water outside of the manufacturing facility. This cost is being incurred on the water treatment plant or the sewage treatment plant, which the sewage or the dirty water or the wastewater is being generated because of the operations of the company. And somewhere that cost is built in the product which is going out of the company, right? So to say that ESG concerns will bring about increased cost and this cost will go to the consumer, that is a wrong thing to say, because that is already happening and there are regulations in place. So the government, the State Pollution Control Board has their regulations and requirements based on which they give the approval or the license to operate. So these are essential parameters and this has to be done. And somewhere these costs are built in the overall cost of the production. So it is already going to the consumer. And we don't see that additional cost will be incurred, and while additional cost will be incurred, but that will not be passed to the consumer.
Right,
Okay.
absolutely.
Right, sir. We have a question from Aishwarya Satish. She's written, which committee is the most apt to adopt this, whether a risk management committee or a stakeholders relationship committee?
So maybe a combination of both. Every business has risks identified for the business processes, right? So to identify ESG risks as specific or a separate activity need not be done. Most of these risks identified for the businesses would fall under somewhere be under the E, S, or the G category. So it's about identifying which all risks pertain to which all category, right? And a combination of both. So the risk identification category and maybe the regulatory group is also required to work here. Maybe the stakeholder interaction committee is also required. Maybe it's CSR. So sustainability is the biggest umbrella, right? And I'm sure there would be question in everyone's mind: what is sustainability? What is CSR? What is ESG? So sustainability is the bigger umbrella. CSR and ESG and everything will be a part of it. Stakeholder management and community management, etc., is all part of it. CSR is more on the social side, ESG is more on the environment side, governance is on the governance side. So a combination of all these committees need to work together to address the ESG concerns and ESG risks.
Right. So we have a question from Rakesh B. He would like to ask, being a CIA and working in industry, what are the career opportunities in this field? Do we have common platform to explore these?
Mamta, you should take this question.
Thank you, Abhishek. So, the career opportunities are endless now. So you see every company is, hiring experts on ESG experts to be able to drive the ESG framework or the integration of ESG into the business concerns. And even in the consulting, you would see, all the consulting firms, all the global firms or the local consulting firms, they have all started focusing a lot on the ESG because they've understood, that it's only going to grow into importance, and it will become really big in next 5 years. So the career opportunities are endless, and yes, if you want to get into this field, if you're coming from a different background, financial background, CA background, it doesn't really matter, because ESG, as Abhishek introduced, during the start of this webinar, when he introduced himself, he clearly mentioned that he's a CA. However, he moved on to the CSR field first and then ESG. So it is no rocket science. You need to have the basic understanding and the common sense to understand what kind of ESG risks are there for an industry. So if you have a industry understanding and you can link this ESG risk with the business, the financial aspects of it, the operational aspects of it, it is not difficult. And if you want to do a particular course to be able to grow your knowledge into it, there are various kind of courses available. You mentioned CII, and CII itself conducts various such training programs. There are other agencies we are conducting various such programs. There are institutes which have come up with various courses which are focused on sustainable development, business sustainability, and innovation across sustainability. So you can look up look into those courses and see which suits you well, and where you want to grow your career into, and then go forward for it.
So Abhishek, I have a question in terms of the reporting requirements also to the SEBI. For the listed companies, as you mentioned, it is currently voluntary, and maybe going forward you have mandatory requirements. So do they have any kind of prescribed format or any any standards where you need to report on this?
Yes. So for the BRR, the erstwhile BRS, sorry, it's still there. So BRR, there was a format which was an 8-9 page document. The new BRSR, which is mandatory, which is voluntary in for the financial year 21-22, is going to be mandatory for financial year 22-23 for the top 1,000 companies by market capitalization. Right. So this BRSR format has also been released by SEBI. It's a 35-page document now. Maybe it's very easy. You go download it from the internet. It is everywhere now. And SEBI, for that matter, is also contemplating. So once this gets implemented, the BRSR, SEBI is also contemplating to get ESG audits done to check the disclosures being made on the BRSR. There's a whole lot of disclosures now. No one knows what disclosures are you making is right or not. So SEBI is also contemplating getting ESG audits being done. So in terms of career opportunities, wait for a year and see what happens.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Over to you, Minaz. You have any further questions?
Yes, I have a continuation to the first question, which was regarding the cigarette industry. So Ruchik has written back stating that he's referring to the stakeholders angle. So what is happening is ITC is diversifying the portfolio and letting the cigarette manufacturer share reduce. So the share is taken by illegal imports of foreign brands with no ESG in place for them. So overall, Indian companies losing in this case. How can company overcome such ESG imbalance?
See, to that extent, regulatory regulators eye on the ESG concerns of the cigarette importers. I agree, there's not much, but now ESG is a global agenda, and I'm sure the company, the head office where these big cigarette companies are based out of, they have to follow the same guidelines on the ESG reporting parameters in their countries as well. And sooner or later, we'll have these regulations in place on the ESG front for these companies. As of now, I agree. There's nothing. ESG is a new thing in India, so it will take some time. It's not an event. It's a process. It will take some time.
Sure. Yes, Minaj.
Yes, sir. So there's one more question from Balchandra Paleshwar. What would be impact of vendors not complying with ESG guidelines?
So let's take an example of a company wherein there's a big supply chain. Let's take an example of an auto car manufacturing company, right? So what happens? The assembly happens at the main plant, but each and every part is outsourced, right? And there's a big supply chain. Now tomorrow, if there's an ESG concern at one of the vendors, which is a part of this big supply chain, these ESG concerns are going to impact the operations of this car manufacturer also. If it's about reputation, it's about brand value, it's about stakeholders, the big company will also get impacted if there's a ESG concern somewhere down the value chain. There's a word called vicarious liability. Liability coming on me because of a conduct of any of my associate. So to say that I am ensuring ESG concerns are taken care of at my plant or my manufacturing unit and I don't care about my supply chain is a wrong statement to make. It will definitely impact the supply chain. And that is why we in our presentation also we mentioned a couple of times on the supply chain. So it's not about sustainability of the business, it's also about sustainability of the supply chain.
Right. In fact, Abhishek, you have already, given one case study, which is very much relevant to this, the Rana Plaza incident. So, these big brands were not really taking care of their supply chain at that point. And, after this incident, it impacted their brand reputation so much. The stakeholders were calling upon these, brands, they were questioned. And post that, most of these brands have started taking care of, the ESG concerns, at least the social concerns in their supply chain. So now they are making sure that, minimal of the health and safety requirements are there, and the laborers are getting the minimum wage paid. So there are certain aspects which they have already started taking care of in their supply chain.
Working conditions, living conditions, and compensation has been taken care of now.
Right.
That's also, we do not have any more questions as of now.
Okay, so thank you, Manas. And so it's been my honor and privilege to be given an opportunity to propose vote of thanks for the today's session. We had an knowledgeable and thought-provoking sessions, and it was an absolute delight to listen to our speakers, Abhishek and Mamta. So on the behalf of IIE Hyderabad chapter and Vizag Club, we express our sincere gratitude for a very insightful session. And thank you, audience, for participating. I hope you have also enjoyed the same. And have a great and wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Mamta.
So we have a quick feedback poll. So in case if the audience can wait, I'll just quickly run the polls. It's a 30-second. Yeah.
Yes, please go. Sure.
Thank you, sir. I'm done collecting the responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Manas. Thank you for your support. Thank you, audience. Thanks very much.